Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Doctrine Dialogues. I am Paul, your host, and today I would like to extend our video talking about slavery in the Bible and just hit a tangent on divorce. In the video on slavery, I talked about how there's a progression of teaching on slavery because God accepts us as we are, as people. But He doesn't allow us to stay who we are. He expects us to change, and He helps us change, and He makes us change into new, better, holier people. And so that's valuable because it helps us understand the Bible. And frankly, if God would not accept us who we are, we'd never be good enough to be accepted by Him. So that's what God does to us. He accepts us, come as you are, but you're not going to stay as you are. God did that with the nation of Israel. He took them as they were, flawed and messed up, and He gave them laws to form a nation that improved them. He didn't demand perfection of them, but He gave them laws that would make things better than they were. And that's the same thing that we see with divorce. Jesus in Matthew chapter 19 talks about divorce. Some Pharisees are debating with him, and they ask Jesus if we can divorce our wives for any cause. And Jesus says, no, you can't. Jesus goes back to Genesis chapter 2. He says, have you not read that He who created them from the beginning made them male and female, and said, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to the wife, and the two shall become one flesh? So they are no longer two, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let not man separate. So that's Genesis 2. Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother, hold fast to his wife, they shall become one flesh. And Jesus is basically saying, look, from the beginning of creation, God has intended marriage to last for lifetime. All right? And then the Pharisees come back because they know their Bible. And they say, why then did Moses command one to give a certificate of divorce and to send her away? Jesus responds, because of the hardness of your heart, Moses allowed you to divorce your wives. All right, clearly Moses didn't command all the Jews to divorce their wives, but Moses did make a concession. He said, you can divorce your wives if, and that's found in Deuteronomy 24. Here we go. Deuteronomy 24, verses 1 through 4, says, when a man takes a wife and marries her, if then she finds no favor in his eyes, because he has found some indecency in her, and he writes her a certificate of divorce. So here Moses allows for divorce. And the focus here is on this phrase, some indecency in her. What does that mean? Well, in Jesus' day, there were two schools of thought, Rabbi Hillel and Rabbi Shammai. Hillel allowed divorce for trivial offenses such as burning a meal. So if you can divorce a wife for burning a meal, you can pretty much divorce her for any and every reason. All right? Shammai held that a man may only divorce his wife for serious transgression. All right? And so Jesus goes on to say, look, the only reason you can divorce a wife is for sexual immorality. Because if you don't divorce someone for sexual immorality and you go and marry someone else, you're committing adultery. That's what Jesus says. But that's not what Moses said. And so the Pharisees say, well, you're making the laws of Moses even stricter. And what Jesus says is, look, the laws of Moses were laws created to make the nation of Israel. So just as America has a constitution, we have the Bill of Rights, we have laws that form our government. Moses was forming a government. And government and morality aren't the same thing. Moral laws and the laws of the government are two different things, and they can't be the same thing, There are some things that government laws deal with, and there are some things that government laws can't deal with. And one of those that is difficult to deal with is divorce. And so in Genesis 24, 1 through 4, Moses allows the Jews, the Hebrews, to give a certificate of divorce to a woman if some indecency is found in her. Now, this some indecency, it literally means like nakedness. And so that term definitely includes things like affairs and adultery. So Moses allowed divorce for adultery, basically. But this term, some indecency, some nakedness, it basically means shame. Like if you've ever accidentally been naked in front of someone and that shame you felt, that's what this term figuratively means. It means, if you find some nakedness in her, some shame in her, if there's something offensive, like maybe you married her and she said she was a virgin, but she's not. Maybe you married her and, possibly this term would include things like she has some terrible disfigurement that you couldn't tell because she's wearing, she's hiding it well with her clothing, and then you marry her, you get her naked, and you go, holy crap, woman, you are ugly. And so perhaps some indecency covers things like that. It probably covers things like inappropriate behavior. Like a woman who's ridiculously flirty with other men to the point of maybe exposing herself, didn't quite have sex with another man, but she's certainly doing sexually inappropriate things with another man. And things like that, things where, something that would be shameful to the husband if she does something incredibly inappropriate. And so Moses here allows for divorce in more situations than just an affair. So with that said, I want to point out the progression of teachings on divorce in the Bible. In the beginning, Genesis 2, God makes it clear that the ideal is that marriage is for life. And that is what it's intended to be. Moses, when he's forming a nation, sits here and he says, look, you are a people coming out of the nation of Egypt, and you are used to living in a place where you can pretty much divorce for any and every reason. So I'm going to accept, come as you are, but you're not allowed to stay this way. You need to change. And so I'm going to ask you to change. The standards for divorce will now be higher. Now there must be some major indecency in her. That's what Moses said. And so Moses is raising the bar, both raising the bar for the Israelites who came out of Egypt, where you divorce for whatever reasons you can come up with, and he's lowering the bar from God's law, because he's saying, God's law demands perfection. You guys aren't perfect. And then Jesus comes back in Matthew 19, and he says, look, Moses allowed you to divorce because you guys weren't going to listen to him. Moses could sit there all day and say, you can't divorce a woman unless she has an affair. Moses could say that all day, and you're just not going to listen. But Jesus says, even though the legal law, the law of the nation of Israel, allows you to divorce your wives for reasons other than affairs and adultery, I'm telling you that the only acceptable divorce in God's sight is because of adultery. So I hope you understand that God accepts us as we are. He does not allow us to stay that way. And although God wants perfection from us, He knows that we are not perfect, and He accepts regularly far less, not because it satisfies Him, but because He Himself is long-suffering and waiting for a day when we can all live together in holy and perfect living without sin. But that day, unfortunately, is not today. So, I hope that explains, not only the progression of teaching on divorce in the Bible, but also the progression of teaching on slavery in the Bible. Because it's very clear, both of these situations, both divorce and slavery, if you apply the golden rule, treat others as you want to be treated, clearly, no one wants to be a slave. The golden rule gets rid of slavery. Clearly, no one wants to be divorced. So the golden rule gets rid of divorce. And so I hope this makes a little more sense here, that God leads us as people. and he understands that we are stiff-necked, we are hard-hearted, and that sometimes as a leader, you want to do so much more with the people that are following you, but it's just not going to happen. You can beg and plead and yell all day, but nothing's going to happen. And that is the frustration of being a leader that Moses experienced, that Jesus experiences, that God experiences. And that's the frustration if you've ever tried to lead people. You know that you can yell and scream and plead and beg and cry all day. Sometimes it's just not going to make a difference. And so a wise leader will find a way to push people to become more than they currently are, and at the same time accept less than perfection. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Again, this Pastor Paul with the doctrine, with the Doctrine Dialogues. I hope that you guys appreciate these series. I hope that you can like, comment, subscribe, and if there is something that you take exception to or something that you'd like to add, please comment about it. I love questions. I love searching these things out. So this is Paul Bullinger, wishing you guys a good day. Thank you.